To meet his, I saw something flicker across his usually composed face. Hesitation, guilt, maybe even fear, but whatever it was, it no longer mattered. 10 years of love, betrayed. I spent a decade loving Ethan, only to wake up one day and realize he had thrown it all away, without my knowledge. He held a lavish wedding for my best friend, the one battling cancer. Her dying wish was to marry him, and he made sure to grant it, ensuring I remained in the dark. Ethan blocked every message, silenced every whisper, forbidding anyone from letting the truth reach me. What he didn't know was that my best friend was live-streaming the entire wedding, broadcasting every grand, picture-perfect moment to the world. That night, I cried myself into unconsciousness, and while I lay broken, Ethan spent the night on the island with her. The day my heart condition relapsed, when I needed him the most, he wasn't there. Instead, he rushed to the hospital. Not for me, but for her. I barely survived. It was at that moment I realized I was nothing more than an afterthought. So, when the influential billionaire Lucas proposed, I said yes, a proposal unlike any other. "Lana, are you sure?" After I agreed to marry him, Lucas messaged me every few minutes, double-checking as if afraid I'd change my mind. Once he received my firm confirmation, he sent me a dozen photos of diamond rings. "These are all from an auction I attended. Pick whichever one you like." I hadn't even replied when another message popped up a few seconds later. "If none of them suit your taste, there's a jewelry auction in England next week. I'll take you there personally to pick one." I stared at the images for a while before sending him a voice message. "That pink diamond one looks nice. Let's go with that." The moment Ethan found out, Ethan hadn't returned home for days, but just as I passed behind him, I unknowingly let the words "wedding ring" slip out. His head snapped up instantly. Wedding ring? What wedding ring? For the first time, his usually cold and controlled demeanor cracked, a rare trace of panic flickered in his eyes. I met his gaze indifferently, already preparing to brush it off with an excuse, but before I could, my phone rang. Sophie. The moment I picked up, her trembling sobs came through the receiver. "Lana, is Ethan with you? I just had another nosebleed. I'm so scared." Before I could even respond, Ethan snatched the phone from my hands. "Sophie, don't be afraid, I'm coming right now." His voice was urgent, frantic. Then, without hesitation, he bolted out the door. It was only then that I remembered. Tonight was supposed to be our anniversary. Ethan had promised to take me on a night cruise along the Pearl River, making up for the years of missed celebrations. But in the end, I was just something he could forget about. Watching him run toward another woman, I felt nothing. Lucas. A new beginning. The phone rang again. This time, it was Lucas. "Lana, are you ready? I'll be in Hershey tomorrow to pick you up." I gazed into the distance, my expression unreadable. "In a week," I murmured. "Once I take care of everything that needs to be done, I'll return to the capital for our wedding." Lucas' voice was steady, reassuring. "Okay, I'll wait for you, and if anything comes up that you can't handle, tell me." After hanging up, I made another call, to Ethan's grandfather. He and my grandfather had been comrades in arms, their bond unbreakable. When I was 8, my heart condition was diagnosed as severe, and my grandfather, trusting Ethan's family's expertise in cardiology, had sent me to live with them for treatment. Over the years, Ethan's parents had treated me as their own, and his grandfather had cared for me in every possible way. Now that I was leaving for good, it was only right to say goodbye. The final betrayal. Ethan didn't return home that night. Instead, Sophie sent me a message. "Look at you. You look so cute with your mouth full." Attached was a photo. Ethan, leaning in to take a bite of cake, while Sophie playfully smeared frosting on his face with her finger. Moments later, another message came through. "I'm sorry, Lana, I sent that to the wrong person." Ethan thought the picture was adorable and asked me to send it to him. "You're not mad, are you?" I didn't reply. I simply put my phone away, walked back to my room, and quietly began packing my bags, the goodbye gift. The next day, at noon, Ethan finally returned. He brought a gift, a peace offering. "Lana, Sophie was really sick last night. I had to take her to the hospital." His voice was filled with concern, his expression tired. I said nothing. I simply opened the brocade box he handed me. Inside was a Rolex women's watch, its band encircled with dazzling diamonds, extravagant, elegant, something meant to impress. I remembered him gifting Sophie a similar watch. The only difference, mine was slightly more expensive. Ethan noticed my silence and frowned. "Lana, are you upset?" I looked up at him and shook my head gently. "No, Sophie is sick, it's only natural for you to take care of her." His brows knitted together, suspicion flashing across his face, but in the end, he let out a sigh of relief. "I'm glad you're not angry. After all, we still have a long way to go together." "But Sophie," his voice trailed off, and I saw the slight redness in his eyes. I didn't care. I had no more patience for his remorse. "If that's the case," I said flatly, "then you should spend more time with her." Turning on my heel, I made to leave, but just as I took a step forward, Ethan's hand shot out, gripping my wrist. I lifted my gaze to meet his, and for the first time, I saw it. The fear of losing me. My gaze was vacant, devoid of emotion as Ethan's frustration seemed to escalate, though he couldn't quite place why. Soon, his phone interrupted the brewing storm between us with its insistent ringing. Glancing at the screen, he took a breath before addressing me directly. "Lana, I have to go on a business trip for the next few days and won't be back for a while. You need to be careful at home," he said, his tone trying to bridge the gap that had formed between us. I responded with a nonchalant hum, secretly relishing the thought of his absence. It meant I could go to Ethan's house tomorrow to say my goodbyes to everyone without his hovering presence. The next morning, armed with gifts, I arrived at Ethan's house. His mother's eyes immediately welled up with tears when I mentioned my imminent return to Beijing. "Lana, what happened? You were doing so well here. Why are you suddenly going back?" she asked, her voice thick with worry. Ethan's father slammed his hand on the table, his voice booming with concern. "Where's Ethan? Why didn't he come back with you? Did he bully you?" I hesitated, the truth on the tip of my tongue, but eventually, I opted for a simpler explanation. "No, it's just that I've been away from home for too long these years, and I want to go back and take a look." Ethan's mother studied me, her eyes filled with a mother's concern. "Does Ethan know about your decision to go back, to avoid any further complications?" I nodded gently. "Yes, he knows." Hearing this, they didn't press any further. After some more light conversation, I stood up to leave. Just then, the door swung open, and there stood Ethan, with Sophie by his side. She greeted me with a smile that seemed to claim her place in this family. "Lana, what are you doing here?" she asked, her tone dripping with a sense of belonging that she hadn't earned. "I don't seem to need to explain my whereabouts to you," I said sharply, walking past Ethan toward the door. Ethan, snapping out of his daze, hurried after me, trying to clarify the situation. "Lana, don't misunderstand. I brought Sophie home today so my parents could help her find a suitable doctor. Besides, she's your close friend too, right? You wouldn't hold it against me, would you?" His words echoed hollowly in my mind, clashing with the promise he made under the cherry blossoms when he was 18, that marrying me was his lifelong wish. Yet here he was, bringing another woman home under the guise of a business trip. Looking into his expectant eyes, I managed a cold smile. How could that be? I've never been stingy. I simply don't care about those who aren't worth it. Ethan paused, taken aback. "Lana, do you really not care at all?" I was tired of his games. In the past, when he was close to Sophie, he accused me of being petty. Now that I showed indifference, he was still dissatisfied. But I was done explaining. There was nothing left to explain. As I entered the elevator, Ethan's parting words were, "Be good and wait for me at home." I reached up and wiped my forehead, his touch making my skin crawl. On our 10th anniversary, he had used a business trip as an excuse to distance himself. That night, however, I received a video call from Sophie. The wedding scene behind her came into focus, and I realized with a shock that it was Ethan's wedding to Sophie. 3 months earlier, Sophie had been diagnosed with a terminal illness. Her post on Instagram about wanting a wedding before she passed had gone unnoticed by me until it was too late. I had even naively asked her who her favorite person was, to which she replied, "You'll know when the time comes." The moment I learned the truth, it felt as though my heart was being shredded. I called Ethan frantically, wanting answers. But he didn't answer any calls. I cried until I passed out, while he celebrated his wedding night with Sophie. Afterward, when I received a call from Sophie apologizing for the awkward encounter, I barely contained my scorn. She praised Ethan's mother for her kindness and hinted enviously, "Why can't the person who marries into the Ethan family be me? As long as you have the capability, then I wish you both 100 years of harmony," I replied coldly before hanging up. Eager to block her and erase her presence from my life permanently, as I inadvertently clicked into Sophie's Instagram profile, my eyes were drawn to a startling discovery. There, boldly displayed, was my design draft, submitted for a competition. It was the very design I had created as a birthday gift for Ethan, and the realization that he had secretly passed it to Sophie made my hands tremble with rage. I attempted to soothe my racing heart, taking deep breaths to regain composure. Clutching the proof of my ownership, my copyright registration certificate, I wasted no time in reporting Sophie's entry as plagiarism on the competition's website. While still reeling from the betrayal, my phone rang. It was Chloe, who co-ran our studio. "Lana, what's going on? Why the sudden withdrawal of funds?" Chloe, though a mutual friend of both Sophie and me, had never gotten along well with Sophie. Trusting her, I confided everything, including the shock of the plagiarism and my upcoming marriage. Chloe's reaction was fiery. "This is outrageous. Sophie's using her illness to steal not just designs but hearts. Is she even really sick? I'm going to give her a piece of my mind." Touched by Chloe's fierce loyalty, I nonetheless urged calm. "Forget it. Chloe, let's not stir more drama. The wedding is nearly here." As I spoke, footsteps approached, and Ethan's voice, fraught with tension, broke the calm. "Wedding? What wedding?" I hung up, turning to face him. Ethan looked visibly shaken. Seizing the moment, I decided to test his reaction with a piece of gossip I fabricated on the spot. "I just heard about a man who secretly held a wedding with another woman behind his girlfriend's back. Can you believe it? Someone called him despicable. His poor girlfriend still thinks she's his one true love." Ethan's response was explosive. How can they judge him without knowing his reasons? What if the wedding was just to fulfill a dying woman's last wish? His defensive stance was almost comical, rendering the absurdity of the situation laughable. 10 years of devotion, wasted, I thought bitterly. Sensing my mood shift, Ethan stepped forward, enveloping me in his arms. "Lana, what's been going on? You know how much I love you. Let's settle this mess with Sophie and then get married, okay?" As he spoke, his hands wandered inappropriately, but I turned away, suppressing his advances. "Sorry, I can't do this," I said quietly, pushing his hand away. Ethan looked at me, his deep-set eyes searching for a sign of the old me, but finding none. Finally, he muttered, "I'm going to sleep in the study," and left the room. That night, as I drifted to sleep, the sound of the front door closing echoed faintly. I rolled over, unbothered, and fell back to sleep. The next morning, Ethan confronted me in the living room, his expression fraught with concern. "Why did you report Sophie? Do you realize the impact this will have on her?" I met his gaze steadily. "Was the design hers? Did she not steal it?" Stunned by my directness, Ethan faltered. "Lana, you've changed. Where's the kind-hearted person you used to be? You've won so many awards. What harm would it have done to let her have this one?" His words stung. "Ethan, you know the sacrifices I've made for my art, the nights my hands ached from the cold as I worked. Why should I hand over my achievements to someone else?" Ethan, failing to understand my resolve, shook his head and walked out. Moments later, overwhelmed by the conversation, I collapsed, crying out for him in agony, but he did not turn back. When I awoke, it was in a hospital bed, with Lucas by my side. "Lana, we're going back to Beijing," he said gently. I nodded, the weight of my broken dreams heavy on my heart. Ethan only learned of my departure 3 days later. His frantic calls became a nuisance, and I blocked him. Tired of his excuses, curled up on an exquisite Italian sofa, I watched as Lucas arranged for a custom wedding dress to be delivered. "Which style do you like?" he asked softly. I pointed to a strapless mermaid tulle dress. "This one will do," I said, a sense of finality in my voice as I prepared to start anew. Leaving the ashes of the past behind, I think it looks quite nice, I murmured, running my fingers over the delicate lace of the wedding dress. Lucas chuckled softly, ruffling my hair with a familiar tenderness. All right then, this is the one, he said, his voice firm yet warm, after finalizing our choice. He left to meet with the wedding planning company, discussing the intricate details of the big day. Over the past few days, Chloe had kept me updated on Ethan's reaction to my disappearance. Lana, you won't believe it, she had said, eyes wide with disbelief. Ethan lost his mind when he realized you were gone. He searched everywhere, asking anyone who might know where you went. In the end, it was his own parents who told him you had returned to the capital. Her words had unsettled me, but I had forced myself not to dwell on them. Lana, what do you think he'll do when he finds out you're getting married? Chloe had asked. I had no answer for that, and, truthfully, I didn't want to think about it. Just then, the doorbell rang. Assuming it was one of the wedding staff Lucas had arranged to come over, I walked toward the door, pulling it open without much thought. The moment I saw him, my breath hitched. Ethan stood there, his eyes bloodshot, his face a mix of shock and disbelief. Rain dripped from his dark hair onto his face, or maybe it was sweat. I couldn't tell. His gaze locked onto mine, as if willing me to disappear, to prove that he was hallucinating. Lana, you're really here, he breathed, voice unsteady, thick with emotion. I didn't answer, his expression twisted, shifting from shock to something almost desperate. Why did you leave without saying anything? He took a step forward, his tone growing sharper. You did it on purpose, didn't you? To punish me, to make me suffer. I tensed as he reached for me. Come back with me. We'll get married right now. Before I could react, a strong arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me back protectively. Lucas had moved in an instant, placing himself between us. His voice was calm, but his words cut like steel. Ethan, step away from my wife. Ethan stumbled slightly, blinking as if trying to process what he had just heard. What did you just say? His voice trembled with disbelief. Lucas squared his shoulders, standing tall, shielding me from Ethan's heated glare. You heard me. Lana is my wife. Stay away from her. Ethan let out a humorless laugh, shaking his head as if trying to wake himself from a nightmare. No, this is a joke. It has to be. Lana, tell me the truth. After 10 years together, you're just going to throw it all away. What about the promises we made? Were they all lies? I had no desire to argue with him, no patience for his delusions. I reached into my bag, pulled out my marriage certificate, and tossed it toward him. The small red booklet landed at his feet. I'm not lying, Ethan, I said steadily. I'm married. For a moment, he didn't move, his shoulders slumped, his face paling as if the weight of my words had physically struck him. Why? His voice cracked. Why? Then, as if something inside him snapped, he lunged toward me. Lucas was faster. He stepped forward, blocking Ethan effortlessly. His face darkened. You're really asking why? Lucas pulled out a set of photographs and let them scatter to the floor at Ethan's feet. You claim to love Lana, he said icily. Yet you secretly married another woman. Is this your idea of love? Ethan's eyes widened as he stared at the pictures. In the glossy prints, Sophie was smiling, radiant and happy, while Ethan stood beside her, his arm protectively wrapped around her waist. They looked like the perfect couple, a knight and his princess, basking in a picture-perfect moment of warmth and devotion. The sight of it burned. Ethan's breath came in short gasps as he scrambled to explain. Lana, it's not what you think. Sophie and I, our marriage is fake. It's nothing, just a way to fulfill her wish before his voice trailed off. I felt a single tear slip down my cheek. Lucas reached out instinctively, his touch gentle as he wiped it away. I took a step closer to Ethan, my voice eerily calm. The marriage was fake, fine. But what about the way you looked at her? Was that fake too? Ethan exhaled sharply, closing his eyes as if in pain. Sophie was your friend. I just wanted to make her happy. I thought you'd understand. I let out a hollow laugh. Understand, Ethan? Do you even believe the things you're saying? That night, when you rushed to her without hesitation, did you even think about me? Did it ever cross your mind that I was at home, so angry that I almost had a heart attack? His body stiffened. His eyes snapped open, his face drained of all color. What did you say? I was done talking. Done explaining, done feeling anything for him. I met his gaze one last time. We're finished, Ethan. His expression darkened, shifting from guilt to something else. Resentment. His lips curled into a cold, bitter smile. So what if you're married? He sneered. It doesn't matter. His eyes gleamed with something dangerous. Even if I have to drag you there myself, I'll take you to the Civil Affairs Bureau and make you divorce him. With that, he pulled out a blank check from his pocket and flicked it onto the table, his smirk deepening. Pretty boy, he sneered at Lucas. Have you ever heard of the Chief family in Hershire? Write down any number you want, walk away from my wife, and we'll call it even. I bristled at his arrogance, about to fire back, but Lucas stopped me with a slight squeeze of my hand. Instead of reacting with anger, Lucas merely smiled, a calm, knowing smile. Ethan, is this how you win back the woman you love? Ethan flinched, as if struck, his temper flared instantly. What the hell do you know? He roared. Lana and I have been together for a decade, we grew up together. Do you really think you stand a chance? If I take her back and spend every day with her, she'll remember what we had, she'll come back to me. Suddenly, Ethan clenched his fists and swung at Lucas. Ethan, stop, you're insane, I cried. But before the punch could land, Lucas caught Ethan's wrist with ease, his grip unshakable. His voice was ice. Step back, Lana. Lucas glared at Ethan, his patience finally gone. Do you think she belongs to you, that you can discard her when you want and take her back when it suits you? Ethan struggled, but Lucas didn't even budge. For all his years of training, his carefully built strength, Ethan now looked powerless. Like a child flailing against an immovable force, Lucas smirked. Letting out a cold chuckle, he snapped his fingers, and instantly, the room filled with security personnel. Within seconds, Ethan was restrained, his arms bound tightly with rope. His face turned red with rage. Bastard, do you have any idea who I am? He snarled. How dare you do this to me? Lucas straightened his sleeves, his expression calm. He glanced at the discarded check, then back at Ethan. His lips curled into a smirk. I know exactly who you are, he said smoothly, but frankly, I don't give a damn. Lucas stood tall, his voice unwavering as he addressed Ethan with icy finality. You come from the prestigious high city chief family. Why don't you go back and ask the old master if he's ever heard of the Liu family in the capital? With those words, he casually lifted his hand, a signal, before Ethan could fully process what was happening. A group of bodyguards swiftly stepped forward and carried him out. He struggled at first, but the sheer force of their presence, and the growing shock on his face, left him speechless. Lucas didn't even spare him another glance. The Haisha family may dominate the medical real estate industry, but the Liu family's enterprises in Kaijing City spanned the entire nation. Their wealth and influence far exceeded that of the Qi family. After ensuring Ethan was escorted away, Lucas turned back to me, his sharp demeanor softening slightly. Lana, don't take this the wrong way, he said, his tone carrying a hint of nervousness. I don't usually handle things this way. I looked up at him, amused by his uncharacteristic concern. His serious yet slightly uneasy expression made me smile. I actually think your approach was perfect, I reassured him. Otherwise, with Ethan's personality, he would never give up so easily. And to be honest, I'm exhausted from all this back and forth. A flicker of relief passed through his gaze, though he quickly masked it with his usual composed demeanor. A family dinner and an unexpected gift. That evening, Lucas arranged a formal dinner for both of our families to discuss wedding details. It was also the first time I would meet his mother. As we waited for everyone to arrive, a slight nervousness crept over me. My palms felt damp, and I subtly wiped them against my dress under the table. Lucas, ever perceptive, reached over and took my hand. His grip firm yet comforting. Lana, he murmured, leaning slightly closer, there's nothing to worry about, my parents already adore you. His voice was low and reassuring, instantly easing my tension. I squeezed his hand in response. When both families finally arrived, the atmosphere was warm and amicable. Lucas's mother, a graceful woman with an elegant presence, smiled the moment she saw me. Her expression held nothing but kindness. Lana, she said fondly, opening a delicate brocade box and handing it to me. I've heard so much about you from Lucas. Now that I finally get to meet you, you're even more beautiful than I imagined." Her words took me by surprise. I first met Lucas at an art exhibition. He was the exhibitor, and I was the curator. We had hit it off instantly, our conversations flowing effortlessly. In just 2 months, we had gone from strangers to an engaged couple. Had he really spoken about me to his family so often? Seeing my momentary daze, Lucas nudged me gently. "Go on, open it," he encouraged with a small smile. I had assumed it would be a simple gift, perhaps a designer bag or an expensive watch, but the moment I lifted the lid, my mother, sitting beside me, let out a startled gasp. Isn't this the Liu family's ancestral jade bracelet?" Inside the brocade box lay an exquisite king's green ice jade bracelet. I had heard of it before, years ago. A financial journalist covering the Liu family had mentioned the bracelet, describing it as a priceless heirloom, rumored to be worth 9 figures. Shocked, I quickly tried to return it. "This is too precious," I protested, but Lucas's mother gently took the bracelet and slipped it onto my wrist herself. "It's a gift for my future daughter-in-law," she said with a warm smile. "No matter how valuable it is, it's not too much for you." Then, placing her hand over mine, she added softly, "Because you deserve it." An unwanted visit. That evening, as I returned home with my parents, an unexpected sight greeted us. Ethan's parents were already waiting inside. My mother sighed, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "Back then, your grandfather insisted on sending you to Haisha, and the Ethan family repeatedly promised they'd take good care of you. We all thought that, in the end, you and Ethan would be together." She paused before continuing, "We don't know what happened between you two. But after all the kindness Ethan's family has shown you over the years, it wouldn't be right to just turn them away." I understood her reasoning. Nodding, I said calmly, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll handle this myself." Taking a deep breath, I carried 2 cups of tea into the study where Ethan's parents were waiting. The moment Ethan's mother saw me, her eyes welled with tears. "Lana," she said, her voice trembling, "I heard you've returned to the capital to get married." I sighed inwardly. "There was no point in dragging this out, Uncle, Aunt," I said, my voice steady. "I won't keep this from you any longer. Ethan and I are over." Ethan's father's brows furrowed deeply, his expression darkened as he snapped, "That brat, has he done something unforgivable? Just say the word, and I'll beat him within an inch of his life." I remained silent, but Ethan's mother was more perceptive. Her hands trembled slightly as she hesitantly asked, "Is this because of Sophie?" I didn't answer, but my silence spoke louder than words. Guilt flooded her face. "Lana," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "we've always considered you our daughter. I can't even look you in the eye after what that foolish son of mine has done. Over the years, Ethan's mother had shown me nothing but kindness, always treating me with warmth and care. No matter what had happened between Ethan and me, I wouldn't let my resentment extend to her. Aunt, no matter what, you and Uncle will always have my respect." I reassured her sincerely. I knew why they had come. They wanted me to reconsider, but after everything I had been through, I simply couldn't find the words to stay. Sophie's true colors. That night, my phone buzzed repeatedly with incoming messages from Chloe. "Lana, you have to see these screenshots," she texted. "That woman is out of her mind." Curious, I opened the images. The moment I saw them, the sheer pettiness of it all nearly made me laugh. Sophie had posted on Instagram, painting herself as the innocent victim. Some people act so pure and kind, but behind the scenes, they can't wait to marry another man before even breaking up with their boyfriend. Have some dignity, okay? And beneath that, a photo of me, an old profile picture she had dug up from years ago. Chloe sent another message, fuming. As if that wasn't enough, she even replied to a comment saying, "You don't know the half of it. Her fiancé is old and ugly. She's only with him for the money." My lips curled into a smirk. Sophie had truly outdone herself. Chloe's next text came in, blunt and seething. "This woman is absolute trash." I couldn't take it anymore. After an argument, I simply blocked her. I was wrapped up in the excitement of my upcoming wedding and refused to let someone like her dampen my spirits. I tried to console Chloe, telling her, "Don't be upset. In 3 days, I'll be getting married, and I'm counting on you to be my bridesmaid in the capital." In the days leading up to this conversation, Lucas had been showing me around, shopping and having fun, calling it a way to deepen our bond. Despite my efforts to distance myself from certain toxic individuals and their past dramas, rumors about Sophie still managed to reach me through various mutual friends. Upon their return to Hershey, the first thing Ethan's parents did was go to the hospital to request Sophie's medical records. What they found was shocking. The records indicated several abnormal test results, suggesting some kind of manipulation. They started digging deeper and discovered the truth: that Sophie didn't have any terminal illness. Her claims of fainting and feeling unwell were merely tactics to gain Ethan's sympathy and attention. When Ethan's mother learned of this deception, she was furious. She had security throw Sophie and her belongings out of the hospital. Sophie, in a state of panic, clung desperately to the hospital doorframe, pleading, "Aunt, please don't kick me out. If Ethan finds out, he will definitely argue with you." Ethan's mother, incensed, slapped her and shouted, "How dare you use Ethan's name? Get out now. Keeping you here is just a waste of medical resources." Sophie sat outside the hospital, weeping and frantically calling Ethan. 5 minutes later, Ethan arrived. Initially, Sophie thought he had come to support her, and she considered sharing her grievances with him. However, Ethan's demeanor quickly darkened as he grabbed her by the hair and demanded, "What did you just say? You're not sick. You've been pretending to be ill to deceive me." Terrified, Sophie could barely whisper her defense. "Ethan, I did all this because I love you so much, and don't you feel the same? You said Lana is too outstanding, and being with her makes you feel pressured. It's different with me. You can be more relaxed and happier." But before she could finish, Ethan threw her to the ground. "Who do you think you are? You can't even compare to Lana. 10 of you wouldn't measure up to one of her fingers." Despite his harsh words, Sophie managed a sorrowful smile and challenged, "Ethan, why won't you admit you've fallen for me? If you don't like me, why do you care so much? Taking care of me and defending me from bullies." Ethan looked at her coldly and revealed the harsh truth. "I take care of you because Lana asked me to. She considers you a good friend. If it weren't for that, do you think I'd even spare you a glance?" Devastated by his words, Sophie screamed hysterically in the street. Calming slightly, she then spoke to Ethan almost boastfully. "What does it matter how much you love her? On the day you married me, I live-streamed our wedding to Lana via video call. Can you guess how many times she called you that day? What do you think she felt hearing the sounds of our wedding night?" In a fit of madness, Ethan pulled Sophie into his car and sped off, intending to crash into the riverbank, proclaiming, "Without Lana, let's die together." The car careened wildly, making Sophie scream in terror. When the traffic police finally stopped Ethan's supercar, Sophie was so frightened that she fainted. 3 days later, the day before my wedding, I received a call from Ethan. His voice was hoarse and barely recognizable. Hearing the name Lana again felt surreal. "Lana, on your wedding day, can I attend? If you can't marry me, I at least want to see what you look like when you get married." Before I could respond, someone took the phone from my hand. It was Lucas, who answered firmly, "Of course, you're welcome. I'll have to personally toast you." Ethan, frustrated, demanded, "Give the phone back to Lana. I want to talk to her." Lucas, unfazed, replied with a slight raise of his eyebrow, "We are united as a couple. What I say and what she says are the same." Ethan hung up the phone in anger, leaving the line dead and the air thick with unresolved emotions. Then Lucas gently handed the phone back to me. The hostility that had enveloped him moments before gradually faded, and his eyes softened warmly as they met mine. "Lana," he said softly, "you weren't upset just now, were you?" I chuckled softly and shook my head reassuringly. "Of course not. You handled everything perfectly. You actually saved me a lot of trouble." Lucas let out a relieved sigh, visibly relaxing. "That's good. I was worried you might be angry. Honestly, though, I'm still concerned, knowing Ethan. He's never been the type to let go easily." Hearing this, I hesitated and asked cautiously, "Lucas, do we really have to invite Ethan to our wedding? I'm worried he'll cause trouble at the ceremony." Lucas immediately dismissed my concerns, speaking confidently, "Don't worry, Lana, as long as I'm here, Ethan won't dare to make any trouble." Lucas had always been strong and decisive in his professional dealings, never someone others could easily intimidate. Yet, in this moment, he treated me with such tenderness and patience that my heart softened. Moved by his unwavering support, I stepped forward and gently wrapped my arms around him. His body briefly stiffened with surprise, but quickly relaxed into my embrace. "Lucas, thank you," I whispered softly. Those simple words carried all my gratitude. "Thank you for accepting me, supporting me, and giving me dignity when I was at my lowest." He gently placed his large hand on my head, speaking in a comforting tone. "Between us, there's never a need for thanks." On the day of our wedding, guests filled the venue, their chatter creating an excited buzz in the hotel dressing room. My nerves grew stronger by the minute. Lucas visited me several times throughout the preparations, thoughtfully bringing me milk tea and snacks. Chloe couldn't hide her envy, joking lightly, "It seems the groom is trying to fatten our bride." Lucas looked at me affectionately. "Today will be exhausting, eat a bit more." The wedding venue was stunning, adorned everywhere with sparkling flame orchids that shimmered beautifully under the lights. Wearing an elegant, high-fashion sheer gown, I slowly walked down the aisle to the gentle melody. Cheers erupted around me, and I felt tears welling as my parents lovingly escorted me, their eyes glistening with emotion. Though it took just a minute to reach Lucas, it felt as if I'd walked from a lifetime of wrong decisions to finally reach the right person. 10 years, feeling almost like an eternity, brought me to this perfect moment. With profound sincerity, Lucas knelt on one knee and held out a dazzling diamond ring. "Lana, will you marry me?" Overwhelmed with emotion, I covered my mouth, tears forming as I nodded. In one smooth movement, we exchanged rings and sealed our vows with a deep, loving kiss. To celebrate, Lucas spared no expense and rented the city's most prominent billboard to broadcast our wedding footage, declaring proudly, "I want the entire city to witness and share your happiness." Ethan, who had promised to attend, never appeared during the ceremony. It was only afterward, once guests had departed, that I saw Ethan restrained by 2 burly bodyguards in a discreet corner. His hands and feet were bound, and his mouth gagged, rendering him silent. Lucas calmly stepped forward and removed the cloth from Ethan's mouth. Furious, Ethan glared at him, shouting angrily, "Is this how you treat your guests?" Lucas maintained a composed expression, replying courteously, "My apologies for the lack of hospitality, Mr. Ethan, please don't take offense." Ethan turned desperately to me, his voice pleading. "Lana," I simply nodded politely. "Thank you for coming, Ethan. Please remember to send us an invitation when you get married. We'll gladly attend together." Lucas's lips curved into a subtle, satisfied smile at the mention of "we." Ethan's face twisted in anger and frustration. "You did this deliberately. You wanted me to see Lana marry you, to break me completely. You're a manipulative bastard." Lucas didn't deny the accusation, instead replying with shameless confidence, "Thanks for the compliment." Defeated, Ethan collapsed to the ground, despair overwhelming him. "Lana, I had planned so many things. I swore I'd win you back today, but seeing you smiling shyly as you walked toward him, I feel as if my throat's been cut by 1,000 blades." I listened calmly, replying softly but firmly, "That's exactly how I felt when you married Sophie." The light in Ethan's eyes extinguished completely. Lucas's plan had succeeded. From this moment forward, Ethan and I had nothing left between us. On our wedding night, I sat anxiously on the bed, my heart racing. From the bathroom, I heard water splashing gently. Soon after, Lucas emerged, bringing a warm mist with him, his toned waist and abs making me blush instinctively. He leaned toward me, whispering softly, teasingly in my ear, "Do you like what you see?" That night, I experienced happiness unlike ever before. The next morning, my body ached pleasantly, and my voice was hoarse from crying out in joy. Despite this, I quickly composed myself, preparing for the evening's banquet with Lucas, eager to embrace the new life we'd begun together. I chose a strapless champagne-colored dress, its elegant fabric hugging my figure perfectly. The moment I stepped into the grand ballroom with Lucas by my side, a hush fell over the crowd, followed by a ripple of murmurs and admiring glances. Eyes followed us, some filled with curiosity, others with envy. after ensuring I was comfortably seated. Lucas excused himself to greet some old friends. His presence was magnetic. Wherever he went, people naturally gravitated toward him. Among them was a man with a confident air. His tailored suit accentuating his sharp features, I recognized him instantly. Cedar, the second son of the renowned Saidu family, known for their legacy in the antique trade. As soon as he spotted me, a teasing smile spread across his lips, and he strolled over, raising his wine glass in greeting. "So, you're the famous Miss Lana, the one our young master Lucas has been dreaming about all these years," he mused, eyes gleaming with amusement. I responded with a polite smile. Meeting his gaze with ease, "Young Master Saidu, I've heard plenty about you as well. It's an honor to finally meet you," Cedar chuckled, swirling the wine in his glass. "Oh, trust me, you have no idea. Ever since Lucas first laid eyes on you as a child, he's never quite been the same. Every now and then, he'd bring you up in conversation, as if you had left an imprint on his soul." His words caught me off guard. Later, he continued, lowering his voice conspiratorially, "When you became a painter, he was your silent benefactor. He personally funded your first art exhibition. Anonymously, of course, and not only that, but he bought every single one of your paintings." A soft gasp escaped my lips. I had always wondered how my debut exhibition had been such an overwhelming success, despite my relatively unknown status at the time. Cedar smirked, still not convinced. "Young Master Lucas even went so far as to open a branch office in Hirsha, just so he could be closer to you." Hearing this, everything that had once seemed inexplicable suddenly made sense. Why had Lucas been able to appear at my house the moment I suffered a heart attack, rushing me to the hospital before it was too late? Why did it feel like fate had repeatedly pulled us together, even when we were worlds apart? Perhaps it was never fate at all. Perhaps Lucas had been watching over me all along. Before I could dwell on the thought further, a familiar warmth enveloped me as Lucas returned, his voice gently pulling me back to the present. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. "You look lost in thought." I turned to him, my lips curving into a soft smile. "I was just wondering, how did we meet as children?" "I have no memory of it at all." Lucas's arm instinctively wrapped around my waist, pulling me closer. A mysterious glint flickered in his eyes as he whispered, "Many, many years ago, there was a little girl who used to cry alone under a cherry blossom tree. She had this habit of running there whenever she was upset. I was practicing piano upstairs at the time, but her constant sobbing was so distracting that I had to go downstairs to see who on earth could cry for so long." His words triggered something in my mind, a long-forgotten memory, buried beneath years of time. "You're the big brother who comforted me," I exclaimed, my eyes widening in recognition. I had always been frail as a child, often left out by my peers because of my health issues. My only solace had been that cherry blossom tree, a secret sanctuary where I could pour out my loneliness. But I had never been truly alone. A boy had been there, a kind, patient boy who had sat beside me, listening to my grievances. In return, I had shared pastries and fresh flowers with him, my small way of expressing gratitude. We had once spent countless afternoons together, basking in the fleeting beauty of childhood innocence. And now, all these years later, that boy had grown into the breathtaking man standing before me. Lucas watched my expression shift from realization to awe, then chuckled softly, ruffling my hair. "I watched you struggle to adjust when you first moved to Sea City. But over time, you found happiness, even fell for Ethan. That hurt more than I care to admit, but I told myself that as long as you were happy, nothing else mattered." His voice dropped slightly, a trace of bitterness seeping into his tone. "But later, I saw that you weren't happy with him at all, and still, I tried to convince myself to stay out of it. I supported your career in the background, helping you overcome every obstacle, because all I ever wanted was for you to be happy." A self-deprecating laugh escaped his lips. "But human desires are never that simple, are they?" Watching Ethan fail to cherish you like he should, I couldn't hold back anymore. I wanted to keep you by my side. I wanted to love you the way you deserve to be loved. My heart clenched at his words. Meanwhile, far away in another part of the city, Ethan had fallen into a downward spiral of despair. He barely left his house, neglected all his business affairs, and numbed himself in endless self-destruction. His grandfather, furious beyond belief, had reportedly struck him several times with his cane, sending him straight to the hospital. As for Sophie, she had disappeared. No one knew where she had gone, but rumors spread quickly. Chloe called me one evening, her voice hushed yet urgent. "Lana, do you know what I found out?" she asked. Hearing that name again stirred no emotion within me. Sophie had long ceased to be a part of my life. "Zay, she's in an awful state now, apparently. Someone saw her picking up scraps in the southern part of the city. She's completely disoriented, almost like she's lost her mind. She keeps mumbling about wanting to marry a rich second-generation heir and become a wealthy lady, but it's all delusions now." I remained silent, listening. "And that's not even the worst part," Chloe continued. "Some homeless man took an interest in her because she still looks decent, after a few encounters. Well, she's now over 3 months pregnant." I felt nothing, no sympathy, no sadness. We were all adults, we chose our own paths, and we bore the consequences of our decisions. Once upon a time, I had given Sophie my trust, my friendship, everything, and in return, all I had received was betrayal. When I hung up the phone, Lucas appeared with a small tray, setting it down in front of me. "Wife," he said softly, "don't overthink things. Have some coconut sago. Take a break." I looked up at him, at his impossibly handsome face, and felt a wave of warmth wash over me. Outside the window, the city sparkled with countless lights, shimmering like stars in the night, and inside this room, beside me, was the only light I would ever need. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the next video.